Introduction. Soon after I published the first book in my Victorian San Francisco mystery series, Maids of Misfortune, I began writing my first short story, InDandy Detects. While I had a practical reason for writing this short story, I wanted something I could give away or sell for 99 cents to attract people to my series. I had a more personal reason for writing it. I wanted to spend more time with some of the minor characters I had created, and this has become the most important reason I write my short stories. Annie Fuller, the main protagonist for my series, lives in a boarding house with 9 boarders and 2 servants. This means she is surrounded by other people who, in my imagination, have whole, rich, vibrant lives going on, even when they are not on stage with Annie. Yet, one of the more frustrating elements of writing cozy historical mysteries, where I must balance the historical detail, the romance, and the mystery plot, is the constant pressure to cut out anything extraneous, which often means scenes involving secondary characters. I also discovered that I was reluctant to let go of some of the characters that were only supposed to show up in one of the books and then disappear when the story was over. As a result, I write short stories where these people, and animals, could have their day in the sun. To my delight, fans of the series seem to enjoy spending more time with these characters as much as I do. In this collection, I have brought together 4 of these stories, one never published publicly before. As a bonus, I have included an essay at the end of the collection furnishing more detail on the history of Victorian San Francisco as it relates to these particular tales. But first, here is a short background for each story and how each fits into the series as a whole. Madam Sibyls' First Client. I wrote this story specifically for this collection. A prequel of sorts, it is set in the spring of 1878, about a year and a half before the events of my first book, Maids of Misfortune. While this story does give some minor characters more speaking roles than usual, it is primarily for those readers who want to see more of Annie Fuller as her alter ego, the pretend clairvoyant Madam Sibyl. For someone new to the series, however, this story also provides an introduction into the personality of Annie Fuller and the reasons why she took up the unusual occupation of fortune teller. The title of this story is rather self-explanatory, but I do believe that readers who are familiar with Maids of Misfortune will enjoy discovering the identity of Madam Sibyls' first client. InDandy Detects. This short story, a shameless rip-off of Alfred Hitchcock's movie Rear Window, was my first short story, and it is set just a month after the events of Maids of Misfortune. This story permitted me to give larger roles to characters who had very minor roles in this first book. Barbara Hewitt, a teacher who lives in Annie Fuller's boarding house, her son Jamie, and his dog Dandy, who was modeled on my own beloved Boston Terrier. The Misses Moffet Mend a Marriage. I had a lot of fun writing this short story, which comes shortly after the second book in my series, Uneasy Spirits. In this tale, 2 characters that were barely mentioned in earlier works have a chance to solve a minor mystery. When I first introduced Miss Minnie and Miss Millie Moffet in Maids of Misfortune, the only thing I knew about them was that they were elderly sisters, one who never said a word and one who talked all the time, who lived in the attic of the boarding house, and that they were seamstresses. It turns out they have much more exciting lives than anyone, myself included, had imagined. Mr. Wong rights a wrong. This last story is an example of what happens when I don't want to let go of a character. Mr. Wong, a Chinese manservant, plays a crucial role in my first book, Maids of Misfortune. I quite fell in love with him, and was delighted that many fans of this book seemed to feel the same way. I kept waiting for a reason to reintroduce him, even having Annie Fuller wonder what he was up to during a scene in Uneasy Spirits. After I finished my third book, Bloody Lessons, I was delighted when I came up with a plot for a short story where Annie would desperately require his services. I suspect this is not the last we shall hear from Mr. Wong.